You're listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. Before we get started, we want to remind you to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Range Minded Podcast. And if you could leave us a review and some feedback from wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else, it would really help us out a lot. So thank you for doing that. This is episode number 67, where we talk with the owner of Independence Indoor Shooting, Dr. Jared Heiner, who without him, we wouldn't even be doing this podcast. So we learn all about what it took to get Independence started, what goes into making a successful firearm shop, and what the future holds for Independence Indoor Shooting. This is one of the best episodes that we've ever done. Jared is a fantastic person, and we hope you enjoy listening to it as much as we enjoyed recording it. As always, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy episode number 67 of Range Minded, the owner of Independence Indoor Shooting. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long, and I am joined by...
me, Steve Zimmerman.
That was so loud, wasn't it?
No.
No.
That's good. Was that too loud? Hey, it sounds like we got
some in my headphones, that's why.
We got somebody else here too, sounds like.
Yes, we have a special guest with us, a very special guest, actually, because without him, we wouldn't be here.
I don't know. I think, you guys are the important people here.
I don't know. So, can you introduce yourself for us?
My name's Jared Heiner.
And who are you?
So I'm a local Meridian, Idaho person. I was one of the ones that started Independence Indoor Shooting.
The founder and owner of Independence Indoor Shooting, correct?
Kind of, yeah.
We can say that.
The bank owns it. I'm trying to buy it back from the bank.
Fair enough. But without you, I don't think any of this would be possible. It'd still be a tract of land.
Yeah, that's true.
You were the man with a vision.
Yeah, and I don't know that I had a vision, like a...
Well, not like a religious style of vision,
right,
but you had
not a revelation, but
you had a dream.
I had an idea, and I molded over for long enough and took a few steps towards getting it done. And then, after a while, I would say before I knew it, but it wasn't that quick. But after several years, it all came to fruition.
Yeah. So let's just dive right into it. How long did it kind of take from idea to having the building open up?
It took about, 6 years.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yep. 6 years from thinking about it and starting to investigate, investing time and effort into research and see what it would take, and then taking those steps to having the building done and the store open was about 7 years.
That's a long time. That's a lot of dedication.
Yep.
Well, and I think it's evident when you walk in to a store like Independence. I've been to a lot of ranges, and you've probably been to way more than I have, and you can really tell the difference going into pretty much any indoor range and then stepping into Independence, that you did take the time to research, to do your homework, to talk to a lot of different people, and to go from an idea to a turnkey building. Yeah, you can definitely tell the difference.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of ranges are in a building that wasn't purpose built. Maybe it was a pre-existing building and then they turned it into a range.
Sure.
And as the local markets, I think, dictate some things, the needs of the customers and the law enforcement community, or that can all dictate how you design it. And we even made changes after our plans were approved and we had started construction. Mm-hmm. We made some pretty significant changes, not super significant, but for instance, one thing we had planned was a simulator room where we could have a TI simulator or something. And,
right.
And, all the ranges we toured and the range owners we talked to that had simulator rooms, we realized they weren't used that much. There was no return on the investment. It was a negative return. And so we felt that, we ended up using that space to expand our gunsmith shop. And that let us have a lot more offerings of services people could use. And
Yeah, because I mean, there's everything back there. We've talked to Cody a bit on a couple of previous episodes about everything that we offer here at Independence, up to and including Cerakoting too. So
Right. And you know, we went to a lot of range development type seminars or classes at the SHOT Show and talking to gunsmiths. There was one seminar that was put on by a couple of professors from a gunsmith college, and they told us that every gunsmith you ask says they wish they had more space. And when they say how much more space, it was always about 50% more than what they had. So if they had 400 feet, they said, well, 200 more feet would, half as much as I got would be good.
sure.
So they told us, hey, whatever you're planning, double it and maybe your gunsmith will be happy, And so that's and we had planned, we only had 400, it was about 400 square feet planned for the gunsmith. And so we heard that, and then we thought, you know what, we just got to get rid of the simulator room.
Sure.
And so we did that. We took away 2 feet off the employee break room. I hope they don't listen to this, but that's one reason that room's so narrow, is it lost a couple feet.
Sure.
So we could expand the gunsmith shop.
I think that was a great idea as far as investing in the building itself, because that gunsmith's going to make way more money than the break room will.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
absolutely true. If we make the break room uncomfortable enough, the employees won't want to spend any time in there.
Yeah, they'll be busy on the floor working and selling. So, so let's kind of pivot to that. Obviously, you start any business with the intent to make some money, but I think with any kind of a gun shop or a gun range, I think there's got to be a passion for firearms behind it. What made you want to start a shooting range?
I grew up with guns. I grew up kind of a city person, but my grandfather and great grandfather, they homesteaded in Wyoming. They had ranches. And so my dad grew up on his grandpa's ranch. And so he taught us to shoot growing up, and, taught us about firearm safety and stories about, behind all the guns, the family rifles we had.
Right.
Kind of those things, histories, and who had used them in our family and what they'd used them for. And so, that was always an interest of mine. I'd go shoot at ranges every now and then. Here in our market, I felt like we didn't have enough, or I was surprised there wasn't another one.
Sure.
And I thought, if there was one, probably people would I would use it. A few things that you look for in a range, and actually you don't notice them unless they're not there, is one is good ventilation.
Right.
Yeah. The other one is range safety officers, or, because everyone thinks they're safe with guns. That's what everyone thinks, but
right.
A lot of times you're in a range and someone muzzles you or something, and they don't even know what they did. And a lot of us aren't comfortable enough to confront them and say, hey, dude,
yeah,
you just, pointed your gun, it's like, I don't really want to pick a fight with someone that's got a gun.
Right.
So you just leave, or you think, I'm going to get my kid out of here. And
yeah, one of my golden rules is life is don't mess with people you don't know.
Yeah.
And at a gun range, sometimes you don't know. And so if there's the range safety officers,
right. Someone who's got that authority to say, hey, look, keep it in the case until you get to the booth, or
right.
Keep, that's helpful. And so we didn't really have that in our market. I'd leave the shooting range and, I'd taste gunpowder on my lips, or I'd sneeze and black stuff would come out or something. And you think that's,
it's completely safe. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah. And that's, honestly, coming here so often is you kind of do get spoiled a little bit, because I've gone to other ranges, and back in Illinois, there's no ventilation really. Especially in the older ranges and stuff. And yeah, you blow your nose at the end of when you're done shooting, and there's black stuff that comes out, and that can't be good for you. No.
And that all comes with some cost, designing the building so it has good ventilation. We used the premier indoor shooting ventilation engineers. Carrie's range ventilation. They designed the system. The equipment was expensive, and then running it's expensive.
Is it? Yeah,
It's
very expensive.
our air units for just the range ventilation and the ducts and the diffusers were about $300,000.
Wow.
And then when we flip the switch and turn on the range ventilation, it's burning about $60 an hour in electrical current.
And they run about 10 hours a day, and there's 3 of them.
Right. So you get a couple shooters in there and you start losing money when you turn on, so there's kind of a critical mass of shooters that you need to just kind of break even just on the ventilation. And, you get that throughout the day. And we actually have two, the 100-yard bay and the first 25-yard, the tapered bay run on one unit.
Oh, okay.
And so we can turn that on and service, 10 people in the 25-yard bay and the 100-yard bay.
Gotcha.
And then the tactical bay, the 7-lane bay in the middle, that has its own unit. So we can scale it a little bit to what we need,
Yeah. So did you have kind of firsthand, involvement with the design of everything, or was it kind of more of a hands-off process with the actual designing?
No, it was very hands-on, and it was very hands-on with decisions made, including, how wide to make the stalls. So one of the considerations for the range ventilation is the width of the bay.
Right.
Is all that matters. It doesn't matter how long the bay is. So if the bay is 10 yards long or 25 yards long or 100 yards long, it doesn't matter. It can use the same air handling unit. So,
okay.
So
it's that column of air that moves.
So
it
doesn't matter how long the bay is. It matters how wide it is. So the wider it is, the bigger the equipment you need. And so there's the air handlers come in different sizes. So you start thinking, okay, the 100-yard bay, that's 16 feet wide, and the taper bay, it's, so many feet wide, or how many feet wide should we make it?
Yeah.
Because if there's a unit that will do, 30 feet and a unit that will do 40 feet, and you only build it for 35 feet, you got to use the 40-foot unit, and you overbuilt. So that's all kind of figuring in your mix. Like you got to think, well, how many people are really going to come shoot?
Right.
You don't want to underbuild, and so there's all those kind of constraints. Then you think about, well, how wide should I make the bays?
Yeah, because they can be too constricting, or they could be
right. Like the 100-yard bay is 4 feet wide in the booth, and the tactical bay is about 3.5 feet wide. So you can fit one person in there and maybe kind of an instructor or observer kind of close by. And then the first bay is about each booth is about 3 inches more narrow.
Okay.
So if you think you got 10 booths at 3.5 feet, and then you think, well, what if I shave off 3 inches off each booth? I could get one more booth.
Right.
So it's
a lot to consider.
It's a lot to consider. And then you think about, for instance, the 100-yard bay. That bay in itself added $1 million to the project.
Wow.
That bay alone. And so you sit there and you think, well, 4 booths, it's already 373 feet long. That's how the building is for that. It's 373 feet long. Well, it doesn't cost that much more to add 4 more feet wide, right? When you already spent at that point 373 feet down in one dimension, why don't you just add 1 more booth?
Yeah, it really doesn't cost that much more.
It doesn't cost that much more. But then that changes the footprint of your building. Do you lose a row of parking spots?
Something's got to give.
Do you, and so even finding the site kind of dictated a little bit about, the design of the building as well. But so that all took a lot of thought and mulling over through to the design process and, even through the architectural phase.
Sure. Yeah, there's got to be a lot of research and a lot of consideration because you have to work within the constraints of the property. And I can only imagine what else.
Yep, your budget. And
yeah. Let's talk about what do you think was the biggest challenge in developing Independence?
That's a good question. The financing was a challenge. The biggest challenge, I think, was finding the right people to make it work. Because it's a great place when you walk in, it's inviting, and, the architects did a great job.
For sure.
Everybody involved in the project did a great job. But what really makes it work is the people who run it. And so Ryan, Steve, Joe, all the people who, run it, that's really what makes the difference and helps the customer have a good experience.
Sure.
And
because you can have the nicest place in the world, but if everybody's rude and not friendly, then you're not going to want to come back.
If it's not safe or they don't have a good experience, then that's one and done.
Well, and the thing is too is nobody really talks too much about how awesome a time they have, but they'll let everybody know if they had a bad experience.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And for gun people, we tend to be quite opinionated about different things.
Gun people opinionated? No.
I thought it was just me.
No, you're just a special kind all on your own, right. Steve.
That's what my mom kept telling me too.
Yeah, but no, I think you're right. I think it is the people and the academy, everybody from the academy to the RSOs, the gunsmiths. It really does take a lot. We've interviewed quite a few people from the shop on the podcast, and there's so much knowledge and they want to share that now.
Yeah,
and
experience
they want to share that with everybody. So, and we haven't even interviewed everybody. So,
that's the truth. I mean, people like I love shooting sports. I love the freedoms that are afforded to us by the Second Amendment, and the freedoms that a lot of our ancestors took pains and sacrificed to give so we could enjoy now.
Yeah.
They said, I'm going to forego, this for myself and make a better future for my children. And I think the Second Amendment is a huge part of what allowed that. And so I'm a big proponent of that, and I'm very appreciative of that. And I think most of the employees are as well. And so I'm as far as my background, me being a gun guy, I think I'd embarrass myself and the other employees of the shop, if I tried to answer a customer's question. And that's one of the t-shirts we have here in the shop. It has a little paper clip on it and says, "This is a clip."
Yeah.
And early on in the process of getting Independence going, when I was talking to Ryan, one of the experiences I had that kind of made me think, we need a store like Independence was I special ordered a clip, or a magazine, I should say. I special ordered a clip for a handgun, and then, paid for it at the store, but then it never came in. And
oh, geez.
Months and months went by and it never came in. And, and then finally I emailed the manufacturer and I said, "Hey, what do I have to do to get a magazine?"
Right.
And they emailed me back and said, "What's your credit card number?" And so I called them on the phone and I gave them my credit card number. And 3 days later, the magazine was in my mailbox.
That's customer
at my house,
service right
and
there.
I'm like, and so I called up this store while I did this special order. I'm like, "Hey, just cancel my special order and refund." And they're like, "Okay."
And they didn't even care.
No. And so I was like, nuts, I'm like, and I'm a small fry customer. It wasn't like I did a big order.
Right. It was just a magazine. Yeah.
But I felt like, so I told Ryan this story and he's like, "That's cool." And then at the end of the story, he was like, "Will you do me a favor?" And and I said, "Sure, what's that?" And he said, "When you're in the store, like around other people, could you not call it a clip? And I was like, I looked at him cross, I'm like, huh? And I'm like, oh, I get it. Right. That was, that's my long-winded,
that's a good story.
That's my explanation of, how much of a gun guy I am.
Right.
Because even at work or somewhere, there's a lot of people who know a lot more about firearms than I do. And so they'll engage me in a conversation with it or tell me, hey, I'm building this. And I'm like, great, that's totally cool, but I'm like,
I have no idea what you're saying.
I hope they don't ask me for my, if I think they should do a different part or a different trigger or, what I think about,
As long as you have no follow-up questions, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I'm not here enough to benefit from all the wisdom of all the employees and all their experience.
Sure. But part of being a smart businessman and a business owner is, hiring people who know more than you about certain subjects and letting those people be professionals and do that. And I think Independence has done a fantastic job of hiring and keeping those people on the team.
Yeah, I agree. We've been very fortunate of that right out of the gate. And there's not, everybody doesn't fit perfect in the team. And so some employees have come and gone, but even those employees have contributed. And I think the other ingredient that you got to give credit for to what makes Independence a nice place is the customers as well.
Oh, for sure.
So,
yeah, that's a good point.
It's the kind of people that come in and are interested in firearms and safety and training.
Yeah.
is huge. It makes for a nice environment, and I think it's really good for the community. The law enforcement enjoys coming here, and we've enjoyed good support from them. And we've made special, even from the design, that was one of the things that we modified after we had begun construction, was to put a bathroom back in the range area. You can't see it because it's just a door.
It's hidden in an undisclosed location.
Right. But it's an ADA, full bathroom.
Right.
That because the law enforcement, they have access to come and go as they please after hours, but they needed a restroom, so that's something that we added.
And I can't tell you how many guys I've talked to on patrol where they've needed to go to the bathroom at like 3 a.m. and they hurry and stop by the store.
For real?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that happens.
Hey, that's awesome.
That's helping your community right there.
There we go.
But to go back to that point is, being a proponent of the Second Amendment and, enjoying that freedom. I think we've created a place that really, and you can enjoy the Second Amendment to the fullest, because not only can you come and shoot and buy guns, we have the full auto experience. We have the training, we have the gunsmithing. I mean, there's not much we can't do here.
Yeah, that's true. And even, other communities, I think is it Grant County, Oregon, that comes in and helps, get Oregon CCWs for Idaho residents, so they don't have to go all the way out to Oregon. Even that's available. We got real unique stuff. The animal caping classes and gutless method skinning, field dressing classes that Barrett teaches. I mean, I don't know where else you can take a class like that.
A gun range or otherwise.
Yeah, from people who are experienced and just you actually do it. It's not a PowerPoint.
Right.
And I know we kind of touched on it. The other thing is not just that they're experienced about it, is they're passionate about it and they love doing what they teach. And so, and I know we kind of touched on it before, but the customer gets a whole different education from somebody who actually does and enjoys what they're teaching.
Yep. And, that's something I realized as well when I took a class here. Is that I thought, I knew enough about shooting and firearms. And I mean, because my dad taught me and his dad taught him. And,
right.
We grew up, it's part of our culture, you know. I mean, my great grandfather was the first mayor of the town where John Moses Browning lived, so I feel like
it's almost in your blood.
Oh yeah, that's what I think, but then I took the class and I was like, holy smokes, I didn't know that I didn't know all this. And you think about, professional athletes, they have coaches and stuff and they get better. College athletes, they get coached and they become better and they become professional. And so, I didn't realize the depth of, there's professional firearms instructors that are going to teach me stuff that I don't know. I didn't realize that I had so much to learn, or that I could learn so much. And so that's been kind of enriching, and
that's really cool.
Eye-opening for me.
Yeah, we've talked about that on the on the podcast quite a bit. Is that in the shooting sports, there's always something to learn, and you always have to have a learning open mind, because the minute that you think that you know everything, you
limit yourself.
You limit yourself, and you won't progress. And that's at best. At worst, you could hurt somebody because you become complacent with firearm.
That's true. That's true. I thought one of the classes that I was in at the SHOT Show, this guy was talking about optics.
Okay.
And he was real passionate that every hunter needs binoculars. Okay.
Interesting.
And he goes on to explain it, and he's like, I've been looking out with my binoculars, out in the field, and looking right down some guy's rifle scope who's looking out, scoping out me through a rifle scope. And and so this guy, he's real passionate about it because his brother got shot off a horse when he was hunting, because some guy thought he was an elk. Okay. Wow. And so he's like, my brother died. He got shot off a horse by a hunter who was, just looking through his rifle scope.
Yeah.
And so, he's like, that's irresponsible. You don't need to be scoping out the hillside with your rifle. That's wrong. And so I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? He's right.
Yeah. I've never thought about anything like that before.
He's right, because you scoping something out, some bushes rustling, and there's a person in there, you're pointing your high power rifle at a person. And,
and whether
I don't think that's right.
No, it's not. And whether you have, your finger on the trigger or not, you're still pointing it in the direction.
Still breaking a rule.
Yeah. If you think, even if you think you have an empty chamber or an empty gun, how many accidents happen because, I thought it was empty.
Mm-hmm. I think everybody has heard a story.
And shot myself in the thigh,
Right. Yeah. And that's the most important thing. We talk about safety all the time. We just did an episode, because I hadn't done one in a while, on just basic gun safety a couple episodes ago, just because you can never, just like with professional athletes, you can never go over the basics too many times. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, and you learn things.
Yeah. But even if you own a gun shop, you have a learning mindset. Everybody has something to learn about firearms.
Yeah, I got a lot to learn.
That's the best attitude to have, and that's the best way to get better.
Yep.
Steve can attest to it. I think we've both seen people who don't necessarily have that learning mindset, and they think they know everything, and that's
sad.
Well, I've dealt with those people more than one time.
Yep, and yeah. People don't like to deal with those people.
No. But speaking of learning, I'm sure you had to learn a lot about regulations and ATF laws and red tape. Can you talk about all that stuff you had to go through to make this happen?
That's there's a lot. You don't realize it's not, because I've always kind of wanted to own a business. I've always thought about it. And so,
sure,
I looked into different things, and then I'd be too slow on the trigger, so to speak, and someone else would do it, so whether it's, opening up a Subway shop by my house, and the Subway developers say, oh no, someone's going to do that. I'm actually doing one in that spot next year, or
gotcha.
I applied to be a Chick-fil-A franchisee, and they sent me a letter saying, you're not the kind of franchisee we're looking for. And then 3 months later, it's in the paper, 3 Chick-fil-A's are opening in the Jersey market, and I'm like, dang it.
Yeah. Right.
That Maverick station, it's full all the time. I would get gas there, but all the bumps are full and the parking stalls are
people
full,
stack up.
And why don't they build this other corner needs a convenience store, a gas station. And so I looked into that. 7-Eleven, they're like, we're pulling out of Idaho. Circle K is like, we're not going in Idaho. And then, I made a meeting with the Chevron guy because they have kind of their own little food mart, model. And then he got sick and canceled the meeting. And then I was so busy, I never rescheduled it. And then, about a year later, there's the city-wide sign up, meeting at the city hall about this thing. And, someone else put a
gas station in there.
So I thought, well, I'm not having bad ideas.
Right. Because things are happening.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, and I even was taking steps towards trying to do that, but it never really happened. And so even with developing this range, what happens when people think about, I could do a shooting range, is you go online, you realize, Action Target and Megget Training Systems are the big equipment companies.
Right.
And so you send them an email, and then they put you in touch with their local sales guy for that region.
Okay.
And so I talked to the Action Target guy and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing it in the Boise market. And he said, okay, yeah, there's 4 other guys talking to me right now about that.
Oh my gosh.
And you think, garbage. Well, don't tell them that don't tell them that there's a 5th one.
Yeah, that's
what I mean?
a secret now. Yeah.
So there's other people thinking about it, but and there's some risk, because you think, well, if I start doing it and someone else is 2 steps ahead of me, then I could be behind the 8 ball. I could be behind.
Right. And you could be making an expensive mistake.
Mistake. So, but it's kind of one of those things where if you don't change and do something, then everything's going to stay the same.
Yeah.
So you got to do something.
Everything must have kind of just fallen into place, so to speak, at least, or being in the right place at the right time and being prepared.
There was definitely a fair amount of that for sure.
Talk a little bit about the dealing with, because we've talked about the gun,
with the ATF?
the gun. That's okay. No, but the gun industry being the most regulated industry, in the country, and somewhere where you have people shooting in full autos, and we're selling guns and selling suppressors, and Form 1s, Form 4s, all that kind of stuff. Talk about kind of how you had to deal with the ATF and the red tape you had to go through with that.
Yeah, that was a challenge, because with, building up inventory for a gun store, everything's not available all the time. So a gun manufacturer, they'll tool up to make a certain gun, and they'll think, well, we can sell 10,000 of these this year. And then they do a production run, and then they retool for the next model or something. And,
sure.
And so they're not making Model A now until it's time next year. So you could, if that gun sells real well, then they wish they made more, but they're scarce. And so some of that stuff you have to start accumulating a year before you open, just so you have it.
Right. You're ready to go.
Right. And so we had it's a catch-22 thing with the FFL, because the FFL is attached to your physical location. And so the physical location, even though we had the land and we were starting to build, there's certain requirements. You have to have locking doors. You have to have a place for the firearms to be secured.
Right.
And it could be a padlock, a master lock, or, and technically it's locked up. That'd be stupid if you didn't keep them super secure. But the ATF, what they're looking for is just, and so we didn't even have windows, or doors, or,
it was just an open building.
It was just kind of a few rows of masonry, 2 feet high or something. So I had to apply for the FFL at my house, and get it done there
and get some security. Yeah.
Well, and so you can store things off site. So we actually had a storage unit. We had a temporary office set up at like a temporary office place. In a storage.
Oh yeah. I remember that office.
I mean, we used that for 8 months, while Ryan, later the general manager, he came to town, and, he was working out of there, because it's a ton of paperwork just to establish a relationship with a distributor. You've got to give them, they're checking all your credit, and it's almost like applying for a loan at a bank, and there's
with a distributor.
Yeah. With a distributor. Wow. So you have to establish this relationship with them and get vetted and go through all these hoops just to be able to buy from, say, Davidson's or Lipsy's or Red Rock or something. And so that's a lot of paperwork. So Ryan was gearing up and doing that. But
Sure.
but back to the FFL, the ATF guy, he says, yeah, well, I want to help you, and you can do it at your house. But is your city okay with that? Is your HOA okay with that?
Wow.
Because how many HOAs say you can't run a business out of your house?
Right. And least of all, a gun related business,
right,
I'm sure.
Or you have to approve it with the HOA first if you're going to have a daycare, or you're going to cut people's hair, or you're going to teach piano lessons or something. I mean, technically that's a business, and some of the HOAs are sticklers. So it was kind of a delicate dance down at City Hall, because the ATF's like, no, look, we need to know that you need a business license, and it's going to be in a residential area, and it's a gun dealership, basically. So it was a precarious negotiation, just talking with the person that does the business permits down there. And then I actually was fortunate enough to get the ATF guy on the phone with a speakerphone to tell him, kind of explain.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
So it wasn't like I'm telling the city guy, the ATF says it's okay.
Yeah, everything's fine.
They're
Just
good.
trust me.
The ATF's good with it. We just need you to write the letter that says you're good with me dealing guns out of my house.
Yeah.
But because that's kind of what, and actually, I wasn't dealing out of my house, but now the guns got shipped to my house. So the UPS and the FedEx guys, they were excited. They were seeing case, like, what's this?
This is great.
They're seeing all this.
Yeah.
So
they loved you.
They knew what was coming up. They were excited.
Yeah, for sure.
But then we'd store them off site at a location that we got approved, because that's. But that was tricky. And then once we open, it's a lot of paperwork to transfer your FFL to a new location.
Oh, I'm sure.
So there's still even to this day vestiges of the FFL at my house, with people calling there saying, do you do transfers? And
oh wow, oh yeah, because
because that was on the original FFL, was not the store's phone number, and not
So you're still getting people calling about transfers, or probably anything else.
Or the
I
FBI
imagine
will call, or
really
the ATF will call about a background. I'll have a voicemail saying, hey, this is it's from Virginia, from a just from Virginia, not a number you can call back. Saying, hey, we have a question about this transfer, give us a call. And, it's still coming to.
And if anybody should know, it should be them.
Right. Yeah.
As far as what number it is.
You would think.
Well, it's a big organization, I guess. We'll just leave it at that.
They're great. I think our local ATF office does a great job. And
they are pretty awesome.
Do a great job.
I think being in Idaho affords us a little bit more, a better of a working relationship, I think.
I agree. And I think it's a working relationship and not an antagonistic relationship.
Yeah, everybody's on the same team, I think, in regards to, legally purchasing firearms,
right.
Responsibly handling them, safely storing them, using them responsibly. So I think that when they have somebody who cooperates with them, and just doesn't want to, I just want to open a gun shop. It's that easy, right? And I think they probably are a little more welcome to do that, to have that working relationship with you. So, but yeah, it's got to be, opening a business in and of itself, I know, is a challenge. And there's a lot to think about. So having anything gun related has to be.
It is. It's a challenge. And the gun, as far as the guns go, that's the coolest part, I think, because without that, there's nothing else. But that's also the most tedious part, because you don't really make any money selling guns. The margins are slim.
Very slim.
And you think if, someone comes in to buy a gun and it takes an employee 30 minutes or an hour to make that sale. And let's say it's a $300 gun and we're going to make 15%. What's that? $45? $45.
Yeah.
And it costs an employee a whole hour to do the paperwork. And maybe that gun sat in our shelf, in our case for 3 months, at 6% that we're paying on, our floating our inventory debt or whatever.
Right.
It ends up being kind of a wash. You think if they were spending $300 at the Gap, they'd scan all the clothes in 2 minutes and make 60%.
Right.
The Gap's clearing 60%. And there's no liability of, you sold the wrong kind of t-shirt to the wrong kind of person. there's no fear of that. So even after we do the paperwork, there's people who spend more hours on that in our quality assurance and compliance, process,
Sure,
to make sure that everything's correct in the bound book. So it takes another employee to go over that, a second set of eyes, and like every little piece of data on there, and make sure that it's all done appropriately.
Yeah.
So that the cost just keeps going up, and then you think, well, is it really worth it? Well, it's not. And I've seen, a couple since we've opened, I've seen a few gun shops come and go.
Oh yeah,
in town.
Yeah.
And I feel for them, because if that's all you've got going on, it's hard to do. So if that person that's buying a $350 gun, if they need an extra magazine and maybe a range bag and a cleaning kit, maybe they sign up for a class, or they come in and shoot a couple times, that's kind of, or maybe they need a night sight mounted, or
they come and
trigger polished,
rent a full auto, or rent some other guns,
or do some stuff. So it's kind of all the different arms of the business are kind of complementary, and that's what keeps the doors open.
Yeah. And I think, but that's good business, because then, the customers win. When you come in, you can get you have all those resources at your disposal at one place, rather than having to go to 6 different places and finding 6 different people to trust with training or supplies or ammunition or whatever. Right. It's all right here. So
15%, that's a pretty generous, and I remember when we opened, we had a guy, he bought 3 guns or something, and he actually walked because we wouldn't give him a bigger, a discount on a new gun. and I remember telling him, I was like, dude, there's no margin in this gun. And he's like, oh, that's BS. I'm leaving. Okay, I'll sell your gun to somebody else.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. Like a car dealership, you expect to negotiate.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And stores have sales on guns, Sportsman's or Cabela's, or, and we buy through distributors. Most gun shops buy through distributors. Huge stores that can buy directly from manufacturers, they, Sportsman can sell a Ruger 1022 for a profit for less money than I can buy at wholesale.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, because they buy such a huge quantity. Yeah.
Right. And so we try to price match. We look at the local competitors, and we try to be lower or at the most even.
Right.
Because we want to be a good deal, but we lose money on some guns because of that, and because of how they're able to buy. That might change for us as we get bigger and can do more volume and could maybe get some direct contracts,
get some better deals
from manufacturers, or in a big buy group.
Yeah.
But for now, that can be a challenge.
Yeah, especially because independence has only been around for 2 years, and some gun stores or big box stores, like you said, like Cabela's or Bass Pro or Sportsman, have ever been around for decades. Yep. And they're all over the nation. This is independence. This is their only one location, so that's kind of a unique challenge in and of itself too. So, what do you think is the biggest thing that surprised you about opening up a range?
That's a good question. The biggest thing that surprised me was the sheer numbers of dollar signs. 'Cause when I first contacted Action Target to say, and talked with someone, and they said, it's going to cost you $2 million to open a range. I was like,
like sticker shock. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I'm like penciling it out. I could do it for like $800,000.
Right.
Well, that's if you do a tiny footprint with like 3 lanes, I mean, just the Action Target people, for our shooting equipment, just the range part was about $800,000 just for the retrievers and the steel baffles and the bullet traps.
That's why we don't want you to shoot them.
Right. That's right.
They're expensive.
They are expensive. And so that was just, and so the project that was just for like a small store, that like I thought we could do. And so just opening up, the sheer numbers, like we might sell $12,000 of stuff in a day. or the gross receipts might be $15,000 in one day.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a boatload of money. You know, like,
sure.
Wow.
I could take 15 grand.
But then, you know, you look at the bank account the next day and $15,000 hits, but then, you know, maybe the credit card processor payment hits.
Right.
And it's payroll that week. And then, you know, chunks are coming out like
or your insurance
15,
or whatever.
Right. Property tax, second half of property tax or payroll tax. It's quarterly, you know, it's like, Ryan, what happened, dude? We got decimated and it hit the line of credit.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
Well, it was a perfect storm. And, you know, and so just, and it's not, so it's like, you know, I grew up kind of where I still think of $5, you know, that's an hour's work for me, you know, from when I was a kid, or $5. Sure. We paid for our gas by like, you know, $5 on pump number 10. You know, we didn't just fill up the tank and not worry about the price of gas.
Right.
I mean, it was like that. So to see like, you know, tens and twenties of thousands of dollars just coming in and out, it's daunting. Like that makes me sweat at night sometimes.
Oh, sure. I was going to ask, do the numbers just kind of, you just get used to them? It doesn't sound like you get used to the numbers really.
Kind of. I'm a little used to that, but I still feel like, you know, $1 is $1, and so we can't afford that.
Yeah.
You know, we can't afford to waste, or, you know, some people think that they're like, well, you know, they'll shop around for something and say, I could go to O'Reilly's and get this brake light for, you know, $4.50, or I can go to Walmart and get it for $4. Mm-hmm. Well, most of us will go to Walmart and save 50 cents, you know.
Sure.
But then let's say you're going to get a new iPhone 10, mm-hmm. and you're going to drop $1,000 at Costco on an iPhone 10, or you could get it at Best Buy for $995.50. You're going to be like, it's 50 cents. I'm buying it I'm here at Costco. I'm just going to buy it. I mean, it's 50 cents. But if you think about it, there's no difference. There's no difference in 50 cents from your iPhone 10 at Costco and Best Buy, or 50 cents on a $4 tail lamp bulb at Walmart. It's 50 cents. And that's what can make the difference. You know, so we don't, and that's one of the things that's, you know, you know, people at work that I see, and they know, hey, you know, they're like, I was in there Saturday. It was so busy. You must be killing it. Are you going to retire? Are you going to be, you know? Right. And I sit there and I think, dude, I mean, I'm just glad I'm not having to feed it any money right now.
Sure.
You know, cause it's still a young business, you know, but it looks like, you know, but, and it would be nice. And if a few more shooters came in every day, because we're meeting our fixed costs, we just need a few more people to come in. Just a couple more people to come in and shoot. That would be the gravy. But, you know, I look around and we've got all these talented and gifted people working here. Mm-hmm. And frankly, they could be making more money at Chick-fil-A or Walmart. You know, but they're here. True. It is true. And so I feel bad about that. You know, I think, hey, we'd love to give everyone a raise, you know, or, you know, these other places, we're going to make our minimum wage is $15 an hour now at Amazon or something like that. Yeah. Well, that'd be great. You know, I love that, you know, but like for now, you know, we haven't been able to do that, but hopefully, you know, as the store grows and we get more busy, you know, those things will come. But those are the kind of things I think about as, you know, how can we get to that point where we can do that? Yeah. You know, maybe someday we'll harvest profits. That'd be sweet. That's right. And you know, you look at on paper, the accountant, you know, says, oh, you know, you're making money, you know, because now you're making your inventory payments, right? Well, yeah. Well, now you own that inventory. Right. You know, your balance sheet looks good. Yeah. Yeah. And but they're going to make payroll on Thursday. Right. You know, or you made the mortgage payment, right, on the building, right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's, you know, $10,000 of equity in your building. It looks like you're making money, and you're like, dude,
it doesn't feel like it.
Checking accounts empty, there's an echo. It's like there's an echo from all the money that just went.
Yeah, right. It just ricocheted in and out.
Just bounce in and out, So, but I think the store's doing well from that perspective. No one's getting rich, but and no one will get rich. Maybe someday, but we'll raise pay before we do that, or
Right. And at the very least, everybody's got a great place to shoot.
That's true. I think it's an asset for the community.
I would agree.
It's a safe place. It's pretty central. Most of us like being outdoors. It's fun to shoot outdoors and stuff. I consider myself an outdoors person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a granola. Like I eat granola.
Right.
I like that stuff. But like when I go out and shoot in the desert, like I don't like seeing everyone's trash. Like, I don't like seeing people's shotgun shells and all their garbage, and they blew up their TV, and there's, it's like,
they just leave it there.
It's embarrassing. Insane. Like I feel ashamed a little bit. I think, dude, these are fellow shooters and they're just trashing the place. I get, we're shooting some lead into the ground, but but the lead came out of the ground, so there's not really a fine line between, it's a huge line that a lot of people cross, just trashing.
Oh yeah. Don't even think about it.
I think they're an outdoorsman because, but they just go out and leave all their garbage and leave all their brass and shells. And
those are the people that complain when that public land gets closed off.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's that's another asset I think that Independence brings to the community is it's pretty central in the valley. You can come here and shoot in perfect conditions and sight in at 100 yards
all year round.
All year round. I have people. There's people at work. They'll say, "Well, I was waiting. I was going to sight my gun in this weekend, but I saw that at 6 o'clock in the morning, the wind would be calm, and so I wanted to go out to Blacks Creek. But then But then I went out there and the near flag was blowing this way and the far flag was blowing the other way. And it took me half the weekend, but I think I'm sighted in.
But do it in 20 minutes or an hour here.
That's right. And so, one of my neighbors across the street, he says, dude, I love Independence. I could spend $20 driving my truck to and from Blacks Creek out, and then wait for a ceasefire and then walk out and hang up my target and then come back and my target blew off and everybody else is shooting and I'm sitting there waiting for a ceasefire. And then I go back out and try to keep my target down, but there's wind. And so I don't really know what's going to be like when I'm hunting, if I'm going to have that same wind.
Right.
So he's like, I don't mind $25, dude. That's a deal. I can come there and 30 minutes later, I don't spend half my weekend, and I know I'm right on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of leads me to my next question is what is the biggest compliment that you've received since you started Independence?
I think what makes me feel good the best is when people compliment the employees. They'll compliment me like I have something to do with it or I deserve the credit. They'll be like, you got the greatest employees there, man. Your employees are awesome.
That's cool.
And I say that I just reflected back. I say, you know what? They are awesome. We're really lucky to have them. I wish I could take credit for that. I mean, I think a lot of them have self-selected and, wanted to work here and they've taken pains to adapt and become part of the team and work. But I think that's the biggest compliment. I think, people will say, oh, the facility's beautiful. It's awesome. And I sit there and think, yeah, man, Amanda Bidwell and Jim Escobar, the architects. Yeah. Like I'd love to take credit for it, but we kind of guided them a little bit on what we wanted, but they really made it like this. I think, Ryan, his wife came up with a lot of the color schemes for inside and kind of the brick, the rifle wall kind of in the back of the store and the brick around the rental counter and stuff, that thin brick stuff. Yeah. We kind of all collaborated on that a little bit. And so it was a lot of a team effort, but people say, hey, you have a beautiful store. And I feel good about that. But I don't know that I really take credit for it, but I feel pride that they like it. And
that's good though. Yeah, I would say so.
Mark asked you if you had any struggles or whatever. I was wondering if there was any struggles within the community, whether it was the government, local government, or people around the range itself that caused some consternation in the process.
I will say for the most part, no. And the background of that is that the land where we are just happened to be zoned commercial for this use.
Wow.
There was no conditional use permit. There was no city planning hearing of, we want to get permission to do this. It was just zoned for it. And so that was nice. There wasn't an uprising of not in my backyard or something like that. And for the most part, I think, 90% of people here in Idaho, they'd be, please, in my backyard. That sounds like a great idea. We took pains to soundproof the inside, put sound absorbing materials, and it's not perfect, but even outside, you can kind of hear when people are shooting, you can kind of hear out in the parking lot, but it's not a nuisance by any stretch of the imagination. Now, one thing we had to make sure was we'd be able to get an FFL.
Right.
And so even when we made an offer on the land and they accepted it as part of the due diligence, we said, look, we got to make sure that we can get an FFL. And the ATF said, hey, there's no reason I can't issue you an FFL.
Awesome.
And, we're just over 1,000 feet from the high school property. There was Broadview University now it's Gem Prep, but when we were starting the development, it was called Broadview University. There's a couple of elementary schools that own property here in the Gramercy development. They own the lots, but never built.
Oh, and there's even apartments a couple hundred yards away.
There's apartments, but one of the big issues is schools.
Sure.
And so the ATF guy, he said, look, there's no reason I couldn't issue an FFL, but I want you to reach out to the schools and make sure there's buy-in. And so
they're okay with it.
They were okay with it. So we reached out to the Broadview University and they're like, yeah, we have no problem with that.
Sweet.
And we reached out to the elementary school and they said, well, our policy is to not take a position for or against that. And we don't oppose it. And so that I think the ATF just didn't want angry people coming in saying, how could you, give an FFL?
Yeah.
And so when we did open, there was one particular individual that lived in the apartments nearby that, said some unsavory things about.
Really?
Yeah. Cause of noise. And, they were going to sue the city council and they were going to sue us and sue and all, and they went around the apartment building getting
signatures or something.
Yeah. Like a petition.
Oh, geez.
And then this, the city came out and they said, hey, they met with Ryan and myself and they said, hey, we actually came out here and measured the noise decibels and it's quiet. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, it's quieter than a garbage truck.
And over in the apartments is even quieter. I mean, you can go outside and you can hear the freeway, and that's pretty loud.
Oh, that's way louder.
But I think, and so this individual had recently moved here from New York, and was very anti. It wasn't the noise; it's what the noise represented. That it was a gunshot, and they were kind of anti-gun. And
interesting.
That was the real issue. Was that we're just anti, because we thought, wait a minute, you moved here from New York. I've been in New York.
It's loud.
I've slept in New York. There's sirens and crap all night long.
Yeah.
It's not a quiet city.
Right.
But so that there was that, that all kind of plays into getting the FFL and, But as far as developing, there wasn't a challenge with permitting.
Oh, good.
Or challenge with the city.
But I think, like you said, doing your due diligence and checking kind of with the surrounding areas and with everybody, that I think goes a long way rather than asking for forgiveness later.
Oh, yeah. I think absolutely. And the mindset, now that the Broadview University has turned into a charter school, which is actually a very good school. And really, from the day it opened, it's been very busy, but they're going to expand. They're going to grow. They're going to build. They have a lot of students that want to go to that school. It's a great school.
Yeah.
And so they even, they approached us and said, hey, can you teach a shooting course,
really?
a firearm safety. So we have a shooting sports curriculum that we've taught to this charter school and another local charter school. And we have a after school kind of youth airgun shooting league that some of the kids from the school, they just come over after school and participate in the airgun league.
That's really cool.
You
Yeah.
know,
So then that leads me, I guess, to my last question I have for you. What do you think, or what do you see that's in the future for independence?
You know, I think part of it is what I think is in the future for the shooting range industry. So I think that is going to be kind of live fire simulators where you'll have a simulator, but you can actually shoot your own gun, you know, so you can shoot your real cartridges
Right.
at a you know, a picture on a screen or a projected picture, and it'll have all kind of scenarios, just like with a TI simulator.
Sure.
But instead of having to use a special, you know, a Glock 17 or 19 with a laser, and that's the only gun that works, you could use whatever gun you want. You could, you know, whatever gun you have.
Yeah.
And I think that will be a lot more entertaining and
interactive. Yeah.
Interactive. You know, you could run different scenarios that are a little more realistic than just shooting a silhouette or a target on paper.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of designed into the plans.
Okay.
Kind of where the motorcycle parking is. That is a potential future expansion bay. And of course, once the technology gets to that point where it's projected, then you can kind of scale the distance by the size of the projection. So
yeah, you don't need 100 yards.
Right. You just shrink the target down to a couple inches, and then you're basically shooting at 100 yards. So that would let you build a lot shorter bay.
Sure.
You wouldn't need as much baffling. You'd take down a lot of expenses.
Yeah.
So if you look closely, kind of out there on the north side of the building where there's kind of a little patio overhang and picnic tables and stuff, on that north side of the building, the columns there that are the different colored cinder block.
Yeah.
But they're not really cinder block. It's a faux fiberglass texture. You know, if you look up real close, it looks like just all the other columns along the 100-yard bay and all around the other rest of the store. But it's just, you know, it's kind of designed so that if we can expand there, we can just kind of use that wall and build out. You know, how far into the future is that? You know, I think the technology's definitely got to mature for a couple more years because we're not quite there. And then the business has to mature as well and have the capability, the resources to expand. You know, we're at a good size right now where, you know, we're not totally overrun with customers. We have capacity to serve more customers. We have capacity to grow that way, and that'll help. You know, once that happens, then we could expand with another bay.
That's exciting, though.
Yeah,
it's very exciting.
Yeah, and that technology. Were you with us? Was it this SHOT Show or the SHOT Show before? I can't remember. We were talking to some of those manufacturers. It is pretty interesting what's going on. It's just like you're saying, it's a little too expensive right now. But it's pretty cool. It's
a little too expensive, and there's different, you know, versions of it. Some of it is on a sheet of paper that kind of rolls like a scroll. Then when it gets shot up, you roll it down a little bit
just
more.
Rolls through.
There's a self-healing screen.
Interesting, yeah.
You know, like
that's
a little
cool.
Kevlar or something screen.
Yeah.
That, you know, after it gets shot 1,000 times, you need a new screen.
Right.
But it's the shot. I think the limiting thing is the shot detection.
Yeah.
Technology to see, you know, where exactly, you know, if it's a white paper and one shot goes through it, yeah, you can detect that pretty easily. But there's not. It just needs to mature a little more, and then it's got to be affordable too. So
yeah, it is cool what they're doing, but one day,
technology, it'll come down in price and be more available, and then, you know, who knows what we'll be doing then, you know, with firearms. So, let's turn it over to Steve. He's got 5 questions that he asks everybody that we interview.
I see,
and they're thought provoking. They don't necessarily have to do with firearms or anything like that. So we'll switch gears over to.
Are they just yes or no?
No.
Yes, no.
I guess maybe they.
How did you get those all?
Am I right? Did I get it right?
Scored 100%.
Wow, that was quick.
Steve, let's jump on those 5 questions.
All right. So this first one is
Red, my favorite color.
close. I'm a Libra, right? No. Well, what experience in your life has been the most influential and why?
Jeez. Huh. I think, wow. There's been so many that have been so profound, ranging from, having your parents get divorced when you're a kid, or, getting evicted from your house. Those are things when you're a kid, those are things that like make you say, geez, if I don't want this to happen to my family, how this sucks.
Yeah. You learn almost what not to do instead of what
stuff,
to do.
But all that stuff, I mean, those are profound influences, and they still affect me today, so I mean, I've been there, so not, having $1,100 for the rent, but not $1,200, and you get evicted, that you're like, dang.
Yeah.
Because, now we don't have a place to live. Now dad can't go work. Now we're, dang it.
Yeah.
Why don't we have that $100, And so that influences me. And that's been a lot of, how I think about making sure independence stays solvent and that. And so I think, and then just, kind of wondering about life in general, why we're here, where do we come from? So I'd have to say just reading the scriptures and,
awesome.
Learning about God and his plan for us as children, his love for us. Mm-hmm. That's probably been the most profound influence in my life and how I think about my relationships with other people and pretty much all of the decisions that I make. I kind of filter through that, through my knowledge of my experiences and beliefs in God.
Very cool.
So say that. That'd have to be the biggest.
That's a great answer.
All right.
That's a great answer.
Right. Ready for number 2?
Yes.
All right. So you just won the lottery. Let's say it was the $100 million, right?
Let's go with like 500 million. 100 million isn't that much anymore.
Okay. 500 mil. Okay. Whoa. What's the first thing you do with it, and why?
I'd pay off the mortgage on Independence. For sure, man. Because I get some good sleep. I think I'd do that. I think, what would I do? I'd pay off debt. I think, would I retire? I'd probably quit working in the same capacity that I do and maybe just do more volunteer work. Like I'd love to do, medical missionary work in Africa or Central America or somewhere.
Right. Because
I'd love to take my kids to do that.
Yeah. I don't think we mentioned that you do have a day job.
Yeah, I have a day job. I work at a urology office. And I had a chance to do that. I had a chance to go to Ethiopia for a couple of weeks back in 2005.
Oh, wow.
And that was really cool. That was really rewarding. And so that's what I think I'd do. I would build an airplane. I've always wanted to build an airplane.
Sweet, man.
And with 500 million, I wouldn't have to choose which one. I could probably choose.
You could build a Spruce Goose.
I could build a light sport, backcountry airplane. I could build a little.
That's cool.
City to city, little tiny cruiser or something. So I think I'd love to do that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I could see you doing that.
Yeah, I'd totally do that in a heartbeat, man.
Nice. Very cool. That's another great answer. Yeah. You're knocking them out of the park, man.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Now it's time to get a little deeper.
Oh, no.
Well, yeah. What is your biggest?
Deeper than the first one. All right.
This could get deeper. What's your biggest fear?
Oh, I don't. I think my biggest fear would be that my family, has a challenge or isn't provided for, or my biggest fear would be something to do with them. I think the biggest blessing I have in my life is my wife, she is awesome. And I just been blessed with wonderful children. So I think my biggest fear is that I fail to give them the guidance or the example that they need or deserve, to help them make good choices. I'm a big believer in learning from other people's experience. And so I like to ask for advice, and I try to be open to that. And I hope, and I think there's that's one thing I've found, even with developing independence, is so many of the other range owners that I toured and asked questions to and stuff, they were very, very open with their experiences, and they told me things they'd do different, or what they wish they'd changed, or when they do their next one, they're going to do it this way,
right?
And I think that's good life advice. I think we offer advice to our children all the time, but it's usually unsolicited, and so it's not well received. So I think my biggest hope for my kids and my family would be that my children, they learn to ask for criticism and advice, and then consider it. Right. Everybody else isn't always right. I think as a kid, watching what happened with my family and the challenges I had as a kid, they were mostly caused by adults. And so you're told respect your elders and all this stuff, but you can look around and there's a lot of adults who are making crappy decisions.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of kids who are pretty smart and they got that figured out. And so I think that's one gift that my early life challenges afforded me, was to say, hey, I need to ask for advice. I can learn from other people's mistakes instead of making my own. And I make my own mistakes, don't get me wrong, for sure, but it's a lot. Sometimes that's painful.
Yeah.
And so it's there's plenty of other people who have had plenty of pain. And so I don't need to go through that. Just ask them how to avoid it.
Yeah, exactly.
Another great answer.
I don't know if I answered it. What's my greatest fear? I don't know.
Yeah, you answered it.
All right.
Okay. So now, what would you say is your biggest achievement?
Oh, man. By far, getting Jan to marry me.
She is awesome.
That was it. I don't know. I didn't have to coerce her or manipulate her or something. But she is that's been the hugest reward and the biggest blessing in my life. I stayed up the night before I got married, man. I didn't sleep at all.
Really?
Oh yeah. And I was worried, I was worried that she was making the wrong decision.
Really?
Oh yeah. I thought, what if this is, what if I don't make her happy, or what if, she should have been with someone else. And so I was really afraid of that.
Man, that's good advice.
So
I'm planning a wedding and getting married next year. So that's,
but that was huge. I think, I've had no greater gift or blessing. I think about all the challenges I've had in life, and that blessing just eclipses all of the other ones, all of the challenges, and, is a huge reward.
Man.
So
awesome, man. That's another great answer.
She's she might not have been perfect for everyone, but she was the perfect one for me, so
we're going to tell her to listen to the podcast. So, but I want to interject real quick with one question. Sure. What did she say when you first told her that you wanted to open a shooting range? Like seriously wanted to open a shooting range?
Well, I asked her, I said, hey, how do I wanted to start a business? And so she loves Chick-fil-A, right? She's lived in Idaho for, 10 years, wishing there was a Chick-fil-A.
Right.
And so that wasn't a hard sell. I said, hey, well, that was her idea. Well, what about a Chick-fil-A? All right, let's do that.
Sweet.
And so, I told her I wanted to. I said, hey, how would you feel if I did this? Or would it be okay if I did this? And she gave me permission. She said, yeah, it's okay. That's okay. But I would say that it's been very stressful for her. And I think there's a lot of times where she's regretted, giving me the green light. And she didn't, the first, I'd say 4 years of developing it, it was between 10 o'clock at night and 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Sending emails to people, responding to emails to people, cause I had a full-time job and I'm kind of busy. And so it was, she wasn't aware of that because she just figured, she's asleep. She doesn't know what's going on. But I put in, as far as hours and effort, I mean, for years, it's a lot of lost sleep, so it's a lot of sweat equity. I feel like there's been a lot of countless hours and effort of sweat equity that she doesn't really see, and opening a business like this is taking a risk. And so there's some financial insecurity that comes with it. What if something happens, we've got a lot invested. There's no guarantee that we're going to get any return on that investment. And, it could all go south, so if someone came and said, "Hey, I love your range. I want to buy it. Here's, $10 million. What do you say?"
Yeah.
I think I probably wouldn't mention that had been said to Jan, because she would,
she'd say, "Let's do it.
We'll take it," and as a matter of fact, she's 99% owner on paper, because I figure, whatever I do, whatever efforts I make, those are consecrated to my family.
Right.
And so, this for her, and everybody's different. Some people go in a relationship and they'll say, "Hey, we're 50-50 and you have your checking account, I have my checking account. And, maybe if we split up down the road, you get the stuff that your parents gave you and I'll take the stuff that my parents gave me," or, they might, and that's okay. But for me, I feel like, what, I'm going to dedicate everything I have to them. And so, on paper, she owns 99%. I own 1%, so I can sign things or make decisions or something. But, and the bank really, owns it. It's
right.
It's, secured. The bank loan is secured by the building and stuff, but hopefully someday, we'll own it.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think so.
We'll see. I hope so. I think so. I'm optimistic.
I hope so. I hope so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all hope so.
I think, I really hope so. I think it's got a bright future. I in spite of the stress that it's caused my wife and me some, but a lot, mostly her. I think there's still a great upside. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do that, was I wanted to have something there for my family. If I keep working, that's great. Yeah. I can make a living and I can provide for my family. But if something happens to me and I'm gone, that's a way that I can still keep taking care of my family, because, I can leave a legacy behind for them.
That's really cool, man.
So
and smart too. Yeah.
I like it.
I don't know. Maybe. Well, thanks.
I think Steve has one last question.
I have one more, and this is by far my most favorite question. And it's something that I always think about, like, for myself. I try to think of this answer, and sometimes it changes. But who would you consider your greatest hero and why?
Well, you mean besides Jesus Christ? He's probably the default answer, right, for a lot of us.
Yeah, I hope so.
He'd be number one. He'd be my greatest hero. I would say it's a friend of mine named Santana Reyes. He's probably my hero, and he's a good friend of mine. He grew up in Tijuana. I met him when I lived in San Diego. He was in my neighborhood, and he grew up with one of 13 kids.
Wow!
In one of these little shacks on the hillside in Tijuana. His table was a stack of tires with a broken piece of wood on the top.
Wow.
That was like their table.
Yeah. Wow.
And, but he he didn't have a lot of opportunity, but like he really wanted to learn. And so he learned things like how to play chess. And by the time he was high school age, he took second place in like the state chess champion of the whole state of the whole state of Baja California. You know, so when I met him, he was living in a trailer in San Diego, and he had a job as a janitor, and it was a night job, and he was trying to learn English because his dream was to be a math teacher. He's like, if I could do anything, I would teach math, but he'd say it in Spanish because he didn't speak any English, you know. And so he'd study English. He was married. His wife, Sandra, would help him with his English. And before like long, after a few months at his job, he did such a good job. He was a supervisor of the janitors.
Of like the team.
Right.
Yeah.
And this building had 3 plant engineers like that. If the, air conditioning broke or, that maintained the whole systems of the whole building.
Right.
So after he would always offer to help the plant engineer. And after like a year, about 18 months, one of the plant engineers retired, and these guys had degrees. Right.
Yeah.
And so they hired Santana to be, and by this time he was speaking okay English.
Sure.
He got to be a plant engineer at this building.
Wow.
And so he like started making great money.
Yeah, man.
And I'd see him and he'd have a new car,
Yeah.
And then I'd see him the next time. I'd be like, hey, man, where's your new truck? He's like, I gave it to my father because he did not have a way to get to work.
Yeah.
So like he's making payments on it to you. And no, I gave it to him for a gift. I'm like, what? And I see him with another new car. And then I wouldn't. And I'd be like, dude, who'd you give your car to this time? And he's still living in like his 1-bedroom trailer. Well, then like the elevator mechanics would come to this building, and the elevator guild is like, it's like a guild, and there's no elevator college. Like to get in, you have to know someone.
Okay.
So the elevator mechanics would come and he'd hang around and say, hey, do you need anything? And he'd help them do their job and get their stuff done. And like after a couple years, they were like, hey, man, would you ever be interested in being an elevator guy?
Yeah.
And he's like, sure.
Okay.
So then he became an apprentice. He became an elevator guy. And then like, but the whole time he was doing this, he got a degree in English because he's going to night school at the college.
Wow,
right?
Man. This guy
he gets a college degree in English. Well, then, so he's the elevator mechanic.
Yeah.
And then the supervisor over 14 elevator mechanics retires. And that position requires a 4-year degree. Well, guess what? No elevator mechanic has a 4-year degree, but Santana. So all of a sudden now he's like,
man.
That's so cool.
I'm like, now, he just kind of rose through the ranks, but it was, his humility, his diligence and working hard and self-sacrifice to just, and
the generosity.
The generosity, man. And he was just always so kind to everyone. And
that's cool.
It's just weird watching him to rise to the top. And then, he did that for a few years, and a lot of the mechanics resented him, because they're like, I've been a mechanic for 20 years and you've been a mechanic for 3 years. Now you're my supervisor.
Yeah.
And you're a Mexican dude. Huh?
Yeah, there's probably some of that too.
So he like, after a while, he was like, he felt bad enough that like, he was like, I think I'm going to switch over and be like a building manager, So he switched out because he felt like, I don't know, he was making too much money and didn't, I was like, what?
Man.
I don't know, but
that's crazy.
I'd say he's probably my hero.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Another good friend of mine, Josh Anderson. A lot of, ex-Marine and a lot of sacrifice for his family. I think watching people sacrifice for their family is something that's pretty cool. That's pretty, I like that.
Admirable.
I
like
sure. That. And like, could I say Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or some of those guys is my hero? No. Like if I see someone who's kind to someone else, that's my hero.
Cool, man. That's another.
So.
Just aced it. I think you aced it, Jared. Thank you.
I don't know.
No, I think Well, I think we'll close on that because I think that you've got the longest podcast ever.
I burned it. Yeah, you.
No, you didn't.
At this point, no one's listening, guys.
Oh man, you did great. Thank you so much for taking some time.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for the invitation, and
I hope you enjoyed.
Thanks for doing this. You guys, I think it's great for the community. It's great for people to come together and have these kind of talks.
Yeah, and that's one of the goals of the podcast is to have a place to have long form conversations about firearms and everything else. It seems like we always end up talking about life too. So
we're all people, right? We have personalities, and that was the other reason when we have guests and those questions is to bring out the personality of those people, not just the stuff that they know.
Yeah, we're all human at the end of the day. So, but we'll close on that, Jared. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed. And
thank you, Jared.
If you have a question that we didn't ask Jared, you can shoot us an email, podcast@iishooting.com, or find us on Facebook and Instagram @rangeminded. And we'll definitely have to have you on again if you'll be welcome.
Yeah, happy to.
So, okay.
That'd be awesome.
Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later.
Ciao.
All right. Bye. See ya.
Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.